In the modern era, there's nothing that can kill a crowd's enthusiasm as quickly as looking stupid. Ask Fandango, Los Matadores, The Ascension, Adam Rose, and they'll be more than happy to tell you after they finish weeping. The majority of fans have no patience for corporate-branded shenanigans and would rather the company spend more time putting together exciting matches with fresh talent than dressing little people as alligators and giving one more reason to feel ashamed about our favourite sport. But once in a blue moon, when the stars perfectly align, a superstar is made to look so stupid that he manages to turn cringe into cash. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10 wrestlers who benefited from looking incredibly stupid. Number 10, Sheamus. Sheamus returned to the WWE ring after 5 months on the bench nursing multiple injuries, and he didn't return alone. He brought a big barrel full of dirt with him. Sheamus was not content with already looking like the roided brother of Beaker, and the Great White shaved his head into a ginger mohawk and braided his beard, looking like the world's angriest chicken or a metrosexual Viking. Reasonably, the fans started chanting, "You look stupid," which was actually great for the Celtic Warrior. For a limited run at least, his look gave him fan engagement he hadn't had for years. He went on to be booked very boringly indeed, which is a shame, but for a while, the stupid was just what he needed. Number 9, Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan, once downtrodden hero of the internet, now delusional champion, was set to defend his belt against pre-chicken Sheamus at Mania 28. Both men could go like the clappers in the ring, so from a pure wrestling fan's perspective, this match had the potential to steal the show. The bell rang, a kiss, a kick, and 18 seconds later, the bell rang again. For any wrestler other than Daniel Bryan, this abject humiliation could have been the death knell of an entire career, but the fans leapt to his aid, partly out of respect for his wrestling acumen, and partly because of how amusing Bryan became, as 18 seconds forced him to a near psychosis. The fans began chanting his name, they began chanting 18 seconds, and then fatefully, they began chanting yes. Number 8, Goldust. The ambassador of looking f***ing stupid, Dustin Goldust Runnels has forged an entire career from the Play-Doh of dumb. He burst onto the scene, confounding and infuriating straight wrestlers and fans alike with his unsettling, sexually aggressive behaviour, feminine wig, gold face paint, and skin-tight latex jumpsuit. You just couldn't look away from him, something that Runnels leapt upon as he began to reinvent himself with increasingly debased and unbelievable results. He would don grey jumpsuits with black negligee painted on them with his face painted red. Oh my god, the clashing. His hair would go from acid green to blood red to royal blue from week to week to week. He wore pink fluffy singlets and masquerade mask and was occasionally led down to the ring on a leash. Sure, it's cloying and obnoxious and I'm just trying to get on with my day here, but I can see the demented amount of man hours that's gone into the whole production, so fine, I'll admit it, it's compelling, and decades later, he's still painted and still performing. Number 7, Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle is an Olympic hero and remains to this day one of the great grapplers of all time. He also went through one of the greatest character transitions ever, debuting as an uptight, pompous, self-promoting prude before slowly turning into the Wrestling Machine, a ferocious in-ring force of bone-breaking, suplexing intensity, and also wanted to have sex with Booker T's wife. The linchpin of that turn? He got shaved bald. Looking back, you could already see that Kurt Angle was losing the Iron Man match against his hairline. Evidently, he made the call to change his look, and WWE thought, well, might as well get a match out of this, and placed him in a rarely seen at the time hair versus hair match against longtime rival Edge. One small package later, what followed was weeks and weeks of Angle pretending not to be bald as the crowd chanted that he was, fashioning wigs to his skull with headgear and refusing to let anyone see or even acknowledge his chrome dome. Finally, he was exposed, and after the dust had settled, Kurt Angle had given himself a sleeker, more aggressive look, while successfully losing none of the original charm that made him great. Number 6, Cody Rhodes. From a loss of hair to the strategic gaining of it now, in 2012, Cody Rhodes was somewhat adrift. His dashing gimmick was spent, and the deranged man in the mask shtick had played itself out. He remained a talented competitor, but was lacking a tangible connection with the fans. Then injury struck. Cody needed this time off to reinvent himself, to painstakingly dissect his appeal and calculate the most effective way to establish his character and his brand with a WWE audience. He grew a moustache. And it worked! Rhodes became the delusional heel, calling his lip rat a love stash, printing t-shirts with moustaches on them, and taking pride in the fact that his facial hair definitely didn't make him look like Tom Selleck's son that he doesn't tell people about. By Money in the Bank 2013, he was one of the most over superstars on the card. Number 5, Rikishi. Rikishi had trouble getting over in the years preceding his Too Cool reinvention. As Fatu, he slipped down the card significantly after his partner Samu left. He suddenly learned fluent English and took on a motivational community leader gimmick that didn't take. He became the Sultan, who wore a mask and never spoke, and it didn't take. Then in 1999, he returned to the WWF with bleached blonde hair and wearing a black thong. All the more to show off his, in the words of good old JR, bodacious bum. He began to rub this same bum in people's faces, and the crowd popped huge for it. Oh, how hideous that must smell. What could have tanked massively for anyone less committed, Rikishi used as a weapon of dominance, and stink-faced his way straight into not only our hearts, but also the Hall of Fame. Number 4, Damian Sandow. In 2013, Damian Sandow, lost and confused after being the only man to cash in Money in the Bank and lose clean, began a seemingly endless series of woeful vignettes dressing up and losing every single time he wrestled. But then Miz, embracing his new movie star persona, decided he'd rather not wrestle that night and introduced his stunt double, Damian Sandow. Everyone's hearts got a little bit smaller that day. Somehow, it became the funniest thing in wrestling, and we're not kidding. Sandow began to impersonate Miz, not just in the ring, but at ringside, mirroring his move. He would punch when Miz punched, fall on his ass when Miz would fall on his ass, and whenever Miz got thrown over the top rope, Sandow would enter the ring, acknowledge Miz's opponent, and then hurl himself over the top rope too. It took devoted professionalism to take a stupid idea and make it into a thing of beauty. And speaking of The Miz, number 3, The Miz. He debuted looking like this. And he's still on the roster. Nice work, Miz. Applause. Number 2, Team Hell No. Whoever thought this would work is either a genius or the luckiest son of a bitch in the history of wrestling. Daniel Bryan and Kane, fresh off an angle where they were both competing for the WWE Championship in the affections of AJ Lee, they began exhibiting frustrations and were put in anger management classes. They spoofed When Harry Met Sally, hung out with a cardigan called Dr. Shelby, and finally hugged it out in the ring. It worked. The sheer weirdness of Bryan and Kane's partnership, their stiff but earnest delivery, and the fans' blossoming love of the yes chant turned this into not only a successful angle, but a tag team championship winning duo, out of which Bryan emerged as the next white-hot main event megastar with his weakling storyline. Hashtag WWE Hug trended worldwide, which proves that everything we know about good ideas and bad ideas is wrong. And number 1, everyone who ever took the atomic leg drop. Hulk Hogan had the worst finisher in professional wrestling. Okay, maybe the worm was worse. What's even more humiliating was being Hogan's opponent and letting yourself be pinned after taking it, especially post-2000. There's just some part of the human brain that will subconsciously bury a wrestler who can kick out of a DDT, but is obliterated by an old man falling on them. But there was a rather large upside. See, if a wrestler was put into a program with Hogan during the 80s and 90s, they knew 2 things. They would end up on their back for the 1, 2, 3, and their paycheck would increase by a factor of 10, 11, 12. In the yesteryear of the WWF, if you wrestled in the opening match on the card, you were lucky to receive $300 for your trouble. Wrestling in the main event against Hogan, however, well, Honky Tonk Man said it best. Believe me, brother, when you're getting that leg dropped on you and you're making $10,000 to take that leg drop every day for 9 shows a week, believe me, I love that leg drop.
We're never going to stop doing magazines called wrestling. It's time for issue 4, the first magazine of 2017. And to celebrate, we're looking back on the wrestling year that was, including end-of-year awards for best and worst matches of 2016, best and worst wrestlers of 2016, best and worst feuds, and many more. Also, a gigantic career retrospective on AJ Styles, Dixie Carter's crimes against wrestling, and how WWE should have booked the road to WrestleMania 2016, written by this sexual Catherine Wheel. As ever, the magazine is available now to order at shop.whatculture.com. For the love of God, buy it.